Hello. I think that I am live. So let's jump right in. So today I want to talk about the biggest fearful avoidant attachment triggers. And I'm going to talk about the 5 main most common triggers for somebody who leans fearful avoidant. I'm also going to talk about why these are triggers that you have if you have fearful avoidant or lean towards fearful avoidant. And I'm also going to talk about tips and solutions for this. So, what you can do if you are experiencing these triggers. So, before I jump into the triggers, for those of you who don't know, fearful avoidant attachment is based around this kind of inner push pull. It has the anxious attachment piece in it, and it also has the avoidant attachment piece to it. So someone who has a fearful avoidant attachment has this desire for love and anxiety around love. That's the fearful, the anxious attachment part, as well as this fear of getting too close, this fear of being hurt essentially. So there's this fear of love, which is that avoidant piece. So this creates an internal push pull in relationships and dating where you both want that person, you want that intimacy, but then you have these freak out moments where you're afraid they're going to hurt you, you're afraid they're the wrong person, you're seeing all these red flags, and so then you pull away. So when someone starts to get close, your alarm bells will go off. You'll fear getting too close because you don't want to be hurt, and you're always on the alert for red flags because of that. So, as a fearful avoidant, trusting the person that you're with is your biggest issue because you really have a hard time with trust given your past experiences in childhood or previous relationships, that I'll talk a little bit about as we're going through these. So, the big triggers, they all have to do with this like trust issue, right? And feeling safe. So your biggest red flags are going to cause you to question everything, to really want to close down, and that's why these are triggers for you. So let's go into these top 5 triggers. So number 1 is feeling like trust is broken. So the fearful avoidance biggest wound is around trust. It's a trust wound. So in the past, trust was consistently broken. Could have been in childhood, could have been in a previous relationship. So you either grew up with a lot of chaos and unpredictability in childhood and or experienced a traumatic relationship or even series of relationships where trust is broken. So this has made you especially on guard for the other shoe to drop, for trust to be broken, for that person to let you down, to hurt you, because trust has been broken so often in the past. You really don't feel like you can trust. You're kind of just expecting that it's inevitable that this person will let you down. So when a fearful avoidant who hasn't done healing around their past and their past wounds around trust, it's really hard for them to trust. It often takes a really long time. So when the trust that they've given and has been earned is broken, it often sometimes could be even a small thing, but it sets off all of their triggers because of their past. So when someone does something that goes against what a fearful avoidant believed about that person or what they said they would do, this is a major trigger. This is a broken trust, right, for a fearful avoidant. So it could be a lack of transparency around something, like not sharing something, like withholding. It could be a mismatch between what someone says and what they do. Like, for example, saying, oh, I'll be there at 7 p.m. and then they're not there. They don't show up for hours. You don't hear from them. Bigger betrayals like cheating, texting another woman, lying, right, goes on. So there's a really good example of this we can see with a fearful avoidant woman in the show Married at First Sight in the first season. One of the women was fearful avoidant leaning. And so the man that she had been matched with, he had gone through a very like kind of an emotional day with her. She was showing him a lot of stuff from her past. She had a really tough childhood. And they got home, he went out and he smoked a cigarette. She didn't know he smoked or had smoked. He came back in and she was like, oh, you smell like smoke. And he immediately was like, oh no, I didn't smoke. I like swear on my mother that I definitely didn't smoke. And she's like, well, I can like smell it, so I know you're lying to me. And so it wasn't great to lie, but it was kind of his automatic reaction because he was trying to protect her opinion of him in that moment. And later, of course, he regretted it. But for her, that was huge when she realized that he had lied, because she related it to abusive relationships in the past where she'd been lied to, where she'd been cheated on, and seeing things like that happen in her childhood. So in that moment, she said like she literally didn't feel anything for him anymore. She lost all of the good romantic feelings and attraction she had had toward him. She said, he's not who he said he was. That was an awful thing for him to do. I cannot trust him anymore. In that if she hadn't been legally married to him for that experiment, that would have been it. She would have been out. It would have been done. Like there would have been no hope for him to like come back from that. Because they were on the show, they got the support, and she got the support to work through it and together, and she was able to start to let that go. And they made it through that moment. But her reaction is completely aligned with how like the really deep trust work, healing work, like feels about broken trust, right? They feel someone breaks their trust, that means it will continue, it will get worse, and there is no way that you can like come back. It's very hard to come back from that. So that's number one. And by the way, if you're resonating with these, let me know in the comments. You can put which numbers resonate with you, or like you felt that way. So number two trigger is feeling like they're being controlled or out of control. So one of the biggest fears a fearful avoidant has is feeling out of control, or like they have lost control, or someone is trying to control them. It has to do with control, because in childhood there was a feeling of being so out of control, and this again could still also go back to previous relationships. So that the feeling was that the environment is so out of control, there's this chaos, the events that are going on. And so when they feel out of control, this leads to feelings of being trapped, of being helpless, of being powerless, of not being safe. And so they often want to control and hyper control everything in their environments, in their lives, because of the past, and not wanting to feel unsafe again. So this often manifests as being a super high achiever, very successful, and very independent, right? Because that means I'm the one in control of my life. Nobody else is in control of it, right? So because the core wound around this trigger is that I'm not safe. And so to a fearful avoidant, control feels like safety. And so their work is to do healing around this core wound of safety. That is the work that I had to do. It is the work that I help my clients do to heal those core wounds and those belief systems in the nervous system, the safety feeling, to rewire and reprogram the subconscious where all of this is stored and coming from. So doing the healing work so you can feel safe to stay open, let someone in, trust, and to really downregulate that anxiety that can really be underlying that like control and the fear of losing control or being controlled. So trigger number three is people having expectations for them. So fearful avoidants tend to already put tons of pressure on themselves to do the best, to perform really well, to be perfect, which, by the way, is part of the manifestation of the need to control, right? That safety core wound. So because they are already so high strung, and again, this has to do with perfectionism, high achievement, right? Being very successful, pushing yourself to be very successful. So it's really triggering when someone else expects things from them, right? It triggers this feeling that what they want is way too much. It's like overwhelming because there's so much pressure that they are already putting on themselves. And so it can trigger wounds again around feeling controlled, being controlled, right? So that's the other piece with that one. Number four is feeling like they've been taken advantage of or their boundaries were violated. So the first thing this brings up again, this trigger, is that control wound, right? Related to not feeling safe. Our boundaries, right, make us feel safe. So fearful avoidants don't often let people in. Remember the trust wound. So when they do let someone in, it's a big deal. And it's a major trigger when they feel that someone took advantage of them, opening up, allowing them in, or trusting that person. That's one. And having their boundaries pushed or violated will make them feel like they need to put up their walls again to protect themselves. And so often boundaries can be very, very rigid with a fearful avoidant because there's fear that if I like don't have this very intense wall up, then someone will take advantage of me. They will hurt me, right? And this keeps people out, of course. So I, for example, had really high alert for certain behaviors when dating someone that reminded me of what I'd experienced with an ex. So, in the beginning of dating my fiance, in the very early stages, that feeling got triggered. And I almost completely wrote him off because I felt like he had pushed a boundary. I had not listened to a boundary. And so I didn't want to see him again. I was like totally done with him, which is like the shutdown the fearful avoidant will do. And I was completely prepared to just run away, close off. It was over. I had done work around this wound already. And so I had to pause and like notice this pattern coming up and to ask myself to actually relook at the situation and relook at him with fresh eyes, not be putting my past on top of him. And to see that maybe my interpretation of what had happened wasn't so accurate and give him a chance. It was the hardest thing I had done in dating. It took a lot of self awareness to not just follow the triggers and the feelings that went along with that, believing them as correct and true, to like to not stay closed. So this one again requires a lot of that deep inner healing work around healing and rewiring those responses that we will go to and the interpretations we will automatically go to, again around that feeling of safety. So if you're resonating with any of these, let me know in the comments if you are and which ones. So, number 5, feeling unworthy, unimportant, or like you don't matter. So, this trigger goes to a fear that I am not important, I am not loved, I'm not good enough, I must have done something wrong. And these are all core wounds that fearful avoidant has. So, whenever someone, especially a partner, someone you're dating, makes you feel dismissed, doesn't acknowledge you, or makes you feel unseen or unheard, that triggers those core wound feelings. So again, this one likely goes back to childhood where there was an experience of not being fully seen or heard or emotionally attuned to consistently or when you needed it. So I had to work on this one for my inner child who can become very, very easily triggered around feeling like the person I'm dating, my fiance in this case, is not fully present with me or not fully like seeing me, right? And often he's just like being himself. He's in his own world. He's being a man with single focus. He's going through his own stuff, but everything feels so personal. And so it can really trigger those feelings of like anger, feelings of hopelessness, of grief. And it really doesn't have to do with that person in that moment. This is again an echo from the past that has to be worked through and worked out, right? Fear that like this person isn't there for me, which means that I cannot trust this person. We see that trust wound causing closing down, closing the heart and the walls to come up. So those are the biggest triggers for someone who has or leans towards fearful avoidant. So I'm going to go into solutions for healing this attachment style in a moment. If you resonated with any of these triggers, let me know in the comments. Tell me which ones. And if you're watching this like on YouTube, make sure that you like the video, hit subscribe so you get my upcoming videos. So, the fearful avoidant attachment style is a really tricky one. It's very hard on the person who is experiencing its symptoms, and it's hard on the people in relationship with them because it can be that yo yo. So, I personally leaned heavily fearful avoidant after a couple of relationships that were traumatic experiences for me, and the ways I kind of took stuff on from those experiences made me afraid and less trusting, right? And so, that can be one reason you can lean towards fearful avoidant. It can actually, your attachment style can shift towards that after experiences. And also, it typically is somehow also rooted in childhood. And typically in childhood, if we look at what was like growing up, what was in the home, love was associated with pain and chaos. So that's why we can become fearful and avoidant of it. So while you want love and you want to be close to someone, you also don't want pain, and that is also what's associated with love. And so you don't want to be hurt. And since love and hurt seem connected to you subconsciously, you will chase love and then you will run from it. And so this results in these very chaotic, dramatic, confusing romantic situations where you will go for the guy who is emotionally unavailable because you'd subconsciously rather long for love and closeness, but never actually have to have it, because when you would get close to someone, then your fears around trust and safety and security come to the surface, right? So you don't want to face that. It's like safer to long. And this is all how it works in the subconscious. So this leads to chasing unavailable men and sabotaging situations with available men. So you'll have trouble being able to get out of your head and stop being on hyper alert or waiting for the other shoe to drop. You'll have difficulty differentiating between a real red flag and your fearful avoidant attachment wounds being triggered. So I know this personally because that was 100% my experience, right? I had a lot of trouble opening up, being vulnerable, allowing someone to see my heart, because I was so afraid of being hurt. So, shifting this attachment style requires deep inner healing work. And so, let's just talk about some of the pieces that go into that. One of the big ones is gaining self awareness of what's going on inside of you and then what's behind the triggers. So, number two, when you know that, doing the deep inner healing and subconscious reprogramming work around the triggers and the fears and the core wounds that are there. So, this is working with your inner child, it's working with the other parts that are coming up to protect you, to save you, to keep you safe and not hurt, but are going too far, and the underlying beliefs that are coming from your core wounds. So, working with the core wounds and those beliefs. Number three is reconnecting with yourself and your own internal sense of security and safety. Number four, once you've done steps 1 through 3, then you're able to actually see more clearly and getting clear on what you really need in a partner. Because we are often attracted to the things that are really not what we actually most need. So, what is it that I actually most need in a partner and want in a partner? Number 5 is how to identify that man versus going for what you've gone for in the past. And this is a big one because our love blueprint, our subconscious mind, is attracted to certain things that remind us of the past. And so you have to do that conscious rewiring around that. Number 6, opening your heart and taking down your walls, your guard to let someone in, and then cultivating that authentic feminine energy with men. These things really happen as a result of doing that inner healing work. And number 7, learn where and when and how to find this man. So getting the support to navigate those early stages of dating where so much can go wrong, especially with fearful avoidant. We can end up self-sabotaging before something gets off the ground. So it is so important having someone who can like hold up a mirror for you, show you your blind spots, help you navigate and learn how to trust yourself so that you can heal. It's really hard to do this on our own because we need someone to basically show us how we can be safe with someone else, learn to open up, learn to love ourselves, and create that inner safety. It really requires that work with someone else. If we try to do it in isolation, we just can't go that deep. We can't go that far. So, in my one on one coaching, you'll get the support to do all of those things. And I have one on one spots open. So, this is a 3 or 6 month deep dive one on one program that I've developed and perfected over the years with my work with clients, many of whom were fearful avoidant or lean towards fearful avoidant. And it's designed to help prepare you for and then attract dream love with a high quality man who is truly what you need, someone who commits to you, chooses you, and have that happen without all of the overthinking, the drama, the anxiety, the walls coming up, and all the fears, right? All the stuff that can get triggered. So you'll rewire your love blueprint, you will heal those attachment wounds, rewire your limiting beliefs, remove any blocks to attracting and keeping this man. So you'll get clarity on what you want and need. You will be able to filter out the wrong men much more quickly because you'll be able to know that you can trust yourself and the difference between a real versus a false red flag. You will gain self-trust, self-confidence, and you will go from single to in a happy, healthy, loving, stable, committed relationship. So if you are feeling the pull, I don't believe in coincidences. So if you're feeling that pull, follow that intuition. Send me a private message to schedule a consultation call. We'll chat. We'll see if you're a fit to work one-on-one. It is a no pressure, no obligation call. Or if you are on YouTube, you can find the link to schedule that call in the description link or in the description. So I love you all, and I am going to sign off. Let's see if I missed anything. I don't know if I can see comments today. Okay. If you did comment, I will get back to you. So I will see you all soon. Bye.